Ever just scrolling through your podcast feed and you see a title that's so out there you kind of have to stop and look. That's what happened to me with this whole exploding whales thing. It sounds like a cartoon, right?
Right.
But it's real and honestly kind of terrifying when you get into it. So picture this. You're walking on the beach, right?
Okay.
And you come across, well, a whale carcass. Sad, obviously. But ever thought about what happens after? Today, we're diving into that whale explosions and why sometimes it gets, well, messy. And joining us to unpack this explosive topic, sorry, couldn't resist, is our expert in all things whale.
Absolutely. Not the most glamorous side of whale biology, I'll admit. But what happens when a whale dies, it can teach us a lot about them and ourselves.
Right, like with whale falls. Most people have heard about that by now, right?
Yeah, it's become pretty well known.
Whale dies, sinks down, becomes this huge buffet for deep-sea critters. Nature's way of recycling on a massive scale. Kind of beautiful, actually. But when it dies closer to the surface, or worse, on land,
That's when things get a bit more aromatic.
to put it mildly.
Decomposition doesn't just stop because the whale's not swimming anymore.
Right.
If anything, it goes into overdrive. And as bacteria break down all that stuff, they release this cocktail of gases. Methane, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide. The real stinkers, you know?
Yeah, and this is like next level smell, right? This YouTube video we're using, it even started with a story about a guy cleaning a turtle pond. And the smell was apparently unforgettable, and I'll scale that up to whale size.
It's not just the smell, it's what those gases are.
Oh, right, they're flammable.
Methane, that's natural gas. Ammonia, think strong cleaning products. And hydrogen sulfide, rotten eggs, all that trapped inside. Yeah, recipe for disaster.
Okay, but whales, they're built for crazy pressure changes when they dive, right? So shouldn't their bodies just release that gas somehow?
That's the irony. Those adaptations, the thick skin, the muscle, it all works against them in this scenario.
How so?
It creates a pressure cooker, basically.
Yeah.
All those gases building up with nowhere to go.
Beached whale, ticking time bomb. So how often does this actually happen?
Not every day, thankfully. But enough times that we know it's a real thing, in some cases. Way more explosive than others. One of the most famous and visually dramatic happened back in 1970 on the Oregon coast.
Ah, yeah, the first televised whale explosion. It's like, believe it or not, stuff. So, giant sperm whale beached, already ripe, you know. And the authorities are trying to figure out what to do, what they come up with. Dynamite.
Half a ton of it.
Half a ton.
And puts the pressure inside these things into perspective, yeah.
No kidding. They were not messing around.
Not at all. This wasn't some gentle nudge. It was obliterate this thing level.
And of course, they documented the whole thing.
Well, they tried to. The footage is something else. Crowds gathered, news crews, the whole shebang. Different time, you know.
Yeah.
But even back then, no one was prepared for what happened.
I bet. This video described blubber flying hundreds of feet, oil raining down.
And the reporter, got a feel for the reporter, caught right in the middle of it. Let's just say it made for a memorable broadcast.
Yeah.
He even called himself a land blubber newsman.
Oh, man.
Talk about a story to tell the grandkids, right?
Right. So, dynamite. Not the solution, I'm guessing.
Not quite. Scattered some of it, sure, but
Yeah.
a lot was left behind. Plus, the cleanup. Massive oil slick, blubber everywhere. Talk about a mess.
A for effort, I guess.
Definitely a lesson learned the hard way. And speaking of lessons learned, decades later, another incident showed that even moving a whale can be risky. 2004, this time our destination is Tainan City, Taiwan.
Okay, getting a little more urban now.
This wasn't some deserted beach. This was right in the city.
A real race against time then, huh? They knew it could explode.
Absolutely. And this whale, massive, 55 tons, 17 meters long, like moving a bus almost.
Oh, wow.
Took a 120-ton crane to budget.
Seriously. I can't even imagine that.
Just over 24 hours to get it loaded onto a truck. All the while, that pressure's built.
Yikes. And the whole thing became this big public spectacle too, didn't it?
It did. Crowds, street vendors, everyone wanted to see the whale.
Kind of wild when you think about it.
It really is. This amazing creature, out of its element, becomes this attraction.
And all the while, it's a literal time bomb.
Literally. And explode, it did. Not at the sanctuary they planned, but right in the marketplace.
Oh no, in the middle of everything.
Right there. People just going about their day, and then whale guts raining down.
That's got to be traumatic.
You said it. Apparently, some of the code stuff was flying at like 70 kilometers an hour.
Wow. Is that even possible?
Is what they say. No one was seriously hurt, honestly. The smell.
Yeah, the video did not hold back on that detail.
Right. Somebody even said it was the smell that almost took my life.
I bet. But beyond the whole, exploding whale part, this actually brought up some scientific mysteries.
It did. See, it exploded way sooner than they thought it would. And from its back, which is unusual.
Really? Huh.
So now there's the theory that maybe how they hoisted it onto the truck might have actually damaged its muscles, weakening the back.
So it was like primed to go off at that point.
Potentially. There's also the thought that maybe it'd been hit by a ship before, and that's why it beached in the first place.
Oh, right. So already injured, stressed, then the whole moving thing just pushed it over the edge.
Yeah.
Kind of sad, actually.
It is. And it makes you think about our role in all this, even if it's indirect.
That's what I was thinking.
Like, it's easy to get caught up in the exploded whale thing, but why was it stranded to begin with?
Exactly.
And a lot of the time, it comes back to us. Ship strikes, for one. These huge ships hitting these huge animals.
Yeah, and it's not just the direct hits either, right? This video talked about noise pollution, too, messing with their navigation.
Exactly. Imagine trying to get around with your ears plugged. It's disorienting. And that could make them go off course, end up beached.
Right, right.
Plus, there's pollution, habitat loss, climate change. It all adds up.
And we haven't even mentioned whaling yet.
It's true. Even though it's banned in a lot of places, it still happens.
Yeah.
Humpbacks, fin whales, sperm whales, blues, all vulnerable.
It's just a lot. Easy to feel overwhelmed by it all, honestly.
It is. But that's why this stuff matters. The more we know about these creatures, the better we can protect them.
So these explosions, yeah, they're wild, but they're also like a wake-up call.
Exactly. Our actions have consequences. Sometimes we don't see them right away, but they're there.
Yeah. What can we do, though? It feels so big.
It's not all doom and gloom. There are things we can do. Supporting conservation groups, making sustainable choices, being aware of our impact,
Right, right. Small steps.
and learning. Those whale exhibits, for example, they're not just for entertainment. They're about education, about building that connection.
So people care more.
Exactly. The more we learn about something, the more we tend to value it. And that's how we start protecting it.
That's a good point. So it's about more than just, wow, exploding whales.
Way more. It's about understanding them, respecting them, and ultimately protecting these incredible creatures.
It's like they're this whole other world right
Yeah.
there under the surface.
Exactly. And we're just starting to understand it.
Whales, I mean. It's not just, oh, they're big. They navigate across oceans. They communicate.
It's like they're holding on to these secrets of the deep, this whole alien world, but still connected to us.
Which is what makes this whole exploding thing even crazier. Like, nature's wild, but it's also delicate.
It is. And I think that's what we miss sometimes. We see these huge creatures, these explosions, and we don't think about the bigger picture.
Or impact.
Exactly.
And there's still so much we don't know.
That's the thing about science, right? It's never finished. Always more to discover.
So where do we even go from here? We talked about conservation, being more aware.
It starts with caring, honestly.
Mhm.
Those small steps you mentioned, they make a difference.
Like, what specifically? Someone's listening thinking, okay, but what can I do?
Support those conservation groups. Look for sustainable seafood. Educate yourself.
Right, right. Like those whale exhibits. They're actually doing something good.
More than people realize.
Yeah,
It's about making that connection. You see a whale in person, it's different.
yeah. You can't help but be amazed.
And when you're amazed, you want to learn more. You start to care.
Mm.
And that's where it all begins.
That's a good note to end on.
It is, isn't it?
So until next time, everybody, keep those brains bubbling. And remember,
Dive deep.
think deeper.